Imagine a peaceful train ride suddenly turning into a nightmare. The Jafar Express, filled with families, children, and elderly passengers, was supposed to be a routine journey from Quetta to Rawalpindi. But in an instant, everything changed. A massive explosion rocked the train, shattering windows and doors. Gunfire erupted, echoing through the coaches as passengers hid in fear. Armed men stormed the train, separating passengers and taking hostages. For those aboard, it was an hour of terror, a fight for survival, and a test of courage. This is the shocking true story of the Jafar Express attack, a tale of betrayal, resilience, and the unbreakable human spirit. On what seemed like an ordinary day, passengers aboard the Jafar Express embarked on a journey from Quetta to Rawalpindi. Families, couples, and individuals settled into their seats, unaware of the horror that awaited them. For many, it was a routine trip, a chance to visit loved ones or return home. But for others, it would become a day etched in their memories forever, a day when their lives were turned upside down by an unthinkable act of violence. The attack began with a deafening explosion. Mushtaq Muhammad, a passenger in coach number 3, recalls the moment everything changed. The force was so intense that it shattered the windows and doors of the train, he shared. Everything happened so fast, there was no time to react. For Ishaq Noor, traveling with his wife and 2 children, the explosion was a parent's worst nightmare. One of my children, who was sitting close to me, fell to the ground, Ishaq said. The sound was deafening, and the chaos that followed was indescribable. As the dust settled, the sound of gunfire filled the air. After the explosion, the firing started, Mushtaq explained. It continued for about an hour. It was a horrifying scene that can never be forgotten. Passengers hid in their seats, praying for the nightmare to end. Ishaq and his wife shielded their children, hoping to protect them from the bullets. We hoped that if a bullet struck, it would hit us and not the child, he said. What followed was a chilling encounter with armed attackers, a desperate fight for survival, and a long, arduous journey to safety. This is the story of the Jafar Express attack, a tale of fear, courage, and the resilience of the human spirit. Through the first-hand accounts of survivors, we uncover the shocking details of that fateful day and the lessons it holds for us all. The journey aboard the Jafar Express began like any other. Passengers settled into their seats, some chatting, others lost in thought, while children played in the aisles. But in an instant, the calm was shattered by a deafening explosion. Mushtaq Muhammad, a passenger in coach number 3, vividly recalls the moment. It was sudden, a massive blast that shook the entire train, he said. The windows and doors shattered, and debris flew everywhere. People screamed, and chaos took over. For Ishaq Noor, traveling with his wife and 2 children, the explosion was a parent's worst nightmare. One of my children, who was sitting close to me, fell to the ground, Ishaq shared. The sound was so loud, it felt like the world was ending. My wife and I grabbed our kids, trying to shield them from whatever was coming next. The force of the explosion left the train in disarray. Luggage was scattered, seats were overturned, and the air was thick with dust and panic. Passengers struggled to comprehend what had just happened. There was no time to think, Mushtaq added. We were just trying to survive. For Ishaq and his family, the explosion was only the beginning. We didn't know if it was an accident or an attack, he said. But when the gunfire started, we realized this was no accident. We were under attack. The explosion marked the start of an hour-long nightmare, one that would test the courage and resilience of every passenger aboard the Jafar Express. As the dust settled from the explosion, the sound of gunfire filled the air. After the blast, the firing started, Mushtaq Muhammad recalled. It continued for about an hour. It was a horrifying scene that can never be forgotten. For Ishaq Noor, traveling with his wife and 2 children, the gunfire was a constant reminder of how fragile life can be. I managed to protect one of my children, he said, while my wife shielded the other by covering him under herself. We hoped that if a bullet struck, it would hit us and not the child. The passengers were trapped, hiding in their seats, praying for the nightmare to end. The firing probably continued for about 50 minutes, Ishaq recalled. During that time, we all remained hidden, fearing that we might get shot. The sound of bullets echoed through the coaches, each shot amplifying the fear and helplessness felt by everyone aboard. It felt like time had stopped, Mushtaq added. We didn't know if we would make it out alive. For Ishaq and his family, the hour felt like an eternity. We held on to each other, whispering prayers, he said. All we could do was wait and hope for the gunfire to stop. That terrifying hour left an indelible mark on the survivors, a reminder of the fragility of life and the strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable fear. When the gunfire finally stopped, the attackers entered the coaches. They began checking the identity cards of some passengers and separated a few of them. Mushtaq Muhammad explained. 3 armed men were guarding the doors of our coach. They announced that they would not harm civilians, women, the elderly, or Baloch people. The attackers spoke to each other in the Balochi language, and their leader gave clear instructions. Keep a special watch on security personnel, they must not escape, the leader repeated. For Ishaq Noor, the presence of the armed men was both terrifying and surreal. From our coach, at least 11 people were taken out, he said. They were identified as security personnel. When one person tried to resist, he was beaten and then taken out. After that, we heard gunfire. The passengers were too frightened to resist. After that, everyone in the coach followed their instructions without hesitation, Ishaq added. The attackers' chilling presence left an indelible mark on the survivors. They were calm but firm, Mushtaq recalled. They knew exactly what they were doing. For Ishaq and his family, the experience was a stark reminder of the fragility of life. We were at their mercy, he said. All we could do was pray and hope they would let us go. As the hours passed, the attackers made an announcement that brought a glimmer of hope to the terrified passengers. In the evening, they announced that they were releasing the Baloch, women, children, and elderly people, Ishaq Noor recalled. For Ishaq and his family, the announcement was a lifeline. Initially, they refused to let me go, he said, but when I told them I was from Riasti and was traveling with my wife and children, they allowed us to leave. The relief of being released was tempered by the knowledge that others were not as fortunate. They took around 100 to 120 people with them, Ishaq estimated. The total number could have been approximately 125 to 150. For Mushtaq Muhammad, the release was a moment of mixed emotions. We were grateful to be free, but our hearts ached for those who were taken, he said. It was a bittersweet moment. As Ishaq and his family stepped off the train, they were met with a mix of relief and exhaustion. We were alive, but the trauma of that day will stay with us forever, he shared. The release marked the end of a terrifying ordeal, but for many, the journey to safety was just beginning. We walked for hours, carrying the weak and the injured, Mushtaq said. It was a test of endurance and compassion. For those released by the attackers, the ordeal was far from over. The journey to safety was a long and grueling one. The militants let the women, elderly, and children go, Muhammad Ashraf recalled. Then, the long walk to the station began in the evening. The journey, which took about 5 hours, was exhausting. It was extremely difficult due to fatigue and the presence of children, Muhammad explained. Most people left their belongings behind, while a few carried some with them. For Muhammad, the walk was a test of endurance and compassion. Some weak individuals were carried on our shoulders to reach the station, he said. I told them that survival here was difficult. The passengers were exhausted, both physically and emotionally. There was extreme fear among the passengers, it felt like doomsday, Muhammad recalled. For Bashir, a passenger traveling with his wife and 2 children, the journey was equally challenging. We took a difficult path and reached Panir railway station. He said. The armed men assured us that we would not be harmed, but the fear was still there. The long walk was a testament to the resilience and strength of the survivors. We supported each other, carrying the weak and the injured, Muhammad said. It was a journey of survival, but also of hope. The attack on the Jafar Express left the nation in shock. Families waited anxiously for news of their loved ones, while survivors struggled to process the trauma they had endured. For Bashir, a passenger traveling with his wife and 2 children, the experience was a stark reminder of the fragility of life. The armed men told us to get off the train, he said. They didn't stop me or my children. They assured us that we would not be harmed. Afterward, we took a difficult path and reached Panir railway station. The survivors' stories spread quickly, drawing national attention. My sons reached Quetta railway station, searching for news about my safety, Muhammad Ashraf shared. They spoke with reporters, desperate for information. The attack highlighted the vulnerability of ordinary citizens and the need for greater security. There was extreme fear among the passengers. It felt like doomsday, Muhammad recalled. The nation mourned the loss of innocent lives and rallied around the survivors. We were alive, but the trauma of that day will stay with us forever, Ishaq Noor said. The Jafar Express attack served as a grim reminder of the challenges faced by the country. We must work together to ensure such tragedies never happen again, Muhammad added. The aftermath was a time of grief, reflection, and a call for action to protect the most vulnerable. The survivors of the Jafar Express attack have shown incredible courage in sharing their stories. Their accounts are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, but they also underscore the need for action to prevent such tragedies in the future. This harrowing event is a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of vigilance. We were alive, but the trauma of that day will stay with us forever, Ishaq Noor shared. His words echo the sentiments of many who lived through the attack, a mix of gratitude for survival and grief for those lost. Let this story be a reminder of the strength of the human spirit and the power of collective action. Share this video to spread awareness. Like, comment, and subscribe to stay informed about stories that matter. Together, we can build a safer, more compassionate world.